company got closed. So I went on then to write for magazines, men's magazines. I wrote a lot of sex stuff for men's magazines. And I wrote for Details and, you know, a couple of good magazines. And then I started doing basically a little cabaret act, which was poetry, but it was usually bawdy, funny poetry, a lot of it based on the music industry. And I had a little piano player, and he did a couple of songs, but they were a joke in a way. I mean, my first song was called Luna Tuna, and it was about a person who can't sing but wishes they could. So it was, you know, the chorus was, carry a tune, carry a tune. I would sing like a loon if only I could carry a tune. And I sang it really badly. But I was kind of, I mean, I was exaggerating the bad part, but I didn't know the first thing about singing, to tell you the truth. And I didn't really think I was going to become a singer, but these were little joke songs. Then little by little, I knew so many musicians. They came to see me and they'd all say, well, let me play for you. Let's write a song, blah, 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 blah. So I wrote my first rock and roll song called Little Red Rooster about David Bowie. I wrote that with Michael Kamen. And before I knew it, I had a rock band. And I loved rock music. So I thought, well, okay, you don't have to be that good a singer to sing rock and roll. So I'll just have a rock band. So then the next step was, if you're going to have a rock band, you got to get a contract. And I was going to, I had a following in New York that was a little bit left over from the cabaret days, and it was pretty gay following. And in hindsight, if I wanted to have a big success as a recording artist, I probably should have stayed in New York, because what I did was really kind of pop rock, comedic and sexy, and I had this big gay following. But Lee Childers was in London. It was 1976, basically. And the Sex Pistols had just come on the scene, and Lee was on tour with them because he worked for the, what was the name of the group Lee worked for?
Johnny Thunders.
Johnny Thunders and
the Heartbreakers.
The what?
Heartbreakers?
The Heartbreakers. So Lee Childers was in London managing the Heartbreakers, who were the opening act for the Sex Pistols in a lot of places. And Lee kept calling me saying, darling, you must come over here. This is rock and roll history. You have to be a part of it. I won't have it that you're not here. You got to come, you got to come, you got to come. So I picked up, I sold everything I had. People robbed me blind. All my jewelry, everything got robbed. I had this Holly Golightly sale with hundreds of people in my apartment, and they just took what they wanted. But we got enough money for one-way tickets to London for Zecca, my piano player, Louis, my boyfriend guitarist, and Max McCary, who was like my road manager. So we go to London, and I had made a deal with Miles Copeland, who had come to see me play in New York. He had a little band his brother had. They couldn't get gigs because they had no publicity hook. I had the publicity hook of Bowie and Warhol. So he asked me, would I use them to play bass and drums and drive the van, and they would play my opening act, and they would play with Zecca and Louis as my band. And they turned out to be the Police. And so I gave them their first gigs. And they were my opening act, and then Stewart and Sting played with me, and we went on the road. And, you know, I had a song called The Punk, which was a pop song, mostly about the Ramones, really. And I wasn't really doing heavy, hardcore punk. I was doing, but then neither was Television or Blondie or Chrissie Hynde, you know, but we all got lumped into that punk thing because it was what was happening. And I didn't mind because it was cool, you know, part of something, a rock and roll movement. So we went on tour with the Police, slept on floors. It's madness. And I eventually got a contract with RCA, and that's how I started recording and blah, blah, blah. So from there, it's another long story.